Hello, happy Wednesday! Thank you for joining me. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery kits. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time when we can relax and craft for about an hour together, and I typically work on projects from beginning to end. So hello, thanks replay viewers for watching, and thanks live viewers popping in. I see you guys coming. All right, so we are going to continue on the Splendid Sampler 2 quilt along. Yesterday we sewed 4 of our blocks together. We did it with a little teeny tiny sashing. This is a 1-inch sashing that, sewn ends up being a 1/2 inch, and then we did a little tiny square cornerstone in the middle there. So I'm going to finish up getting this piece ready for the quilt as you go technique. So we're gonna sandwich this quilt tonight. So I'm going to get my backing fabric and some batting, and we'll get those all prepped, and then I want to sew together our next one of these. So yesterday we sewed this together. I have 4 more blocks ready to go, and we can sew the sashing and the little cornerstone to that, and maybe even we'll get that ready to quilt as well. So once we have that all quilted, then we can do the quilt as you go technique of putting those 2 blocks together. So I'm super stoked for that. Let's get this kind of mini quilt going tonight and see if we can sew together 4 more of these blocks. So thanks for coming, everyone. I'm gonna flip you around. We'll get started. All right, here we are tonight. So I am so happy with this. I think it's just cute with this itty bitty sashing and this tiny little square. So we'll have these tiny little squares at every little meeting of the blocks, like in every corner of our blocks will live there. So I didn't figure out the math yet for how many sashing bits and how many cornerstones I actually need to cut yet. I know some of you have figured it out, and I see your comments. I just have to write down the notes that you took for me because I know some of you guys figured out the math. So I'm going to write that down, and then I'll double check it just to make sure how this is all going to work out yet, and then we'll know how many of these strips. We cut a bunch yesterday. So I do have a bunch of 1-inch by 6.5 inch strips here. I just don't know how many I cut, and I don't know how many I need, but I know I need a bunch, so we just started. And I also just cut a few of the cornerstones as well. I'm sure we'll need a pile of these as well. So, okay, we got our first one done. So now we're going to basically turn this into a quilt. It's like a mini quilt. Instead of doing the quilt as one big giant quilt, we're doing a bunch of mini quilts, and then we're going to use the quilt as you go technique to put it together. So I found a bunch of this color solid fabric that I had. I thought I had a whole bolt, but I don't. I have 3 fat quarters and then whatever scraps these are. But I think this is going to be my backing. I thought it'd be just really, really cute. Like if it's on a bed or something, and just, you tilt it up, and I think this yellow just looks pretty with everything we got going on here. So that's gonna be my backing fabric. I'm pretty sure I don't have enough, but I think my mom might have some of this color left, so I might try and get some from my mom next time I see her. Otherwise, it'll be a mishmash background, which is fine too. So let's get a piece that is as big as our square here. We're gonna want the background piece to be a little bit bigger because things tend to shift a little bit when we're quilting. So I wanna make sure that I have at least a good, I don't know, 1.5 or 2 inches around this piece, just so I know that I have enough. So let's see if any of these scraps are big enough. I have a hunch that they're not. Okay, so the scraps that aren't big enough to go around a whole block here, I am going to save for the background because we are going to need to make some sashing strips for this as well, for the back. All right, these are all too small. So these I will use for the background. Ooh, this looks like maybe it's big enough. Oh, maybe not quite. All right, boo. Well, we'll have a bunch for sashing. I might have to rely on my actual fat quarters that I know will be big enough. Oh yeah, that's too small. I just dug through my scraps to see what I had today. Too small. Definitely too small, too small. Okay, well, I guess we're relying on my 3 fat quarters that I have for sure. So I'll definitely have to snag some more of this when I can. Like I said, thought I had a bolt, but I guess not. All right, so this should be, this is plenty big. Let's press this quickly, and then I think I'm just going to cut by hand. No need to worry with the rotary cutter and all that. I just need to cut it by hand a little bit bigger. Antoinette, there's no block today. The blocks come on Thursday, so tomorrow will be new block Thursday. So I'm pretty stoked for that. So it sounds like the book has come out digitally. Maybe they're starting to ship the book, but if you purchase it, you can purchase it digitally right now. And I know a bunch of you guys did that, and so you guys all have a preview of all of the other blocks. I have not seen the other blocks up close yet, so you'll have to let me know if you see anything that looks super fun that you can't wait to work on. I don't know what order they're gonna go in or any of that, so I'm kind of curious what block they do next. But yeah, so tomorrow is new block day, and so we'll stop whatever we're working on. We'll stop wherever we are in this process and work on the next block, but we'll do that just for Thursday, because on Friday is Finish It Friday, which is the first Friday of every month. We stop whatever we're working on and pull out one of the projects that I've had just sitting around forever. Some unfinished project, right? Some UFO, unfinished object, and work on that instead. Put in a good hour of time on that. So that will be Friday. So if you want to join me, grab some unfinished thing that you got sitting around, and we'll work on that instead. Take a break from this stuff. Man, I don't quite have a big enough workspace here, I think. All right, so I'm going to kind of lay... Actually, while I'm at it, I'm going to get my batting out as well. So I am planning... I have all sorts of batting scraps, and I think I'm going to do all different kinds of batting, even though I know some batting is thick, some is thin, some shrinks at a little different rate. I'm going to just use whatever I have and see how it turns out. I think that Quilt As You Go is a great opportunity to use up scraps. That, you know, so all this was cut from a larger quilt, so I have this. You know, then this one's a little bit thinner, but I should have enough for a block for that. And then I have this really fluffy batting, so this might be fun to use for one of the blocks. And I also have, I found like this big sample thing that I got at one point of different batting. So I figured here's a great opportunity to use up a pile of this batting that I just have laying around here. So I think we'll pick one that I'm familiar with for the first one. For the Charming Chevrons quilt, we used this warm and natural batting, and this is actually from what I purchased for the Charming Chevrons quilt. I'm just gonna find a corner here to lay on top of this. We'll use this batting first. Okay, so I'm just laying the batting. You know what? I think we're gonna change our workspace here. This is gonna be easier on a flat workspace, so I'm gonna just shimmy this guy out of the way. make things a little bit easier here. Turn the machine. Okay. Get some stuff out of the way. There we go. This will be a little bit better, I think. There. Now we can lay this down on a flat surface. So I want to be able to see the edge of my backing fabric just a hair. I want to make sure it's flat, and then I'm just going to kind of flatten out the batting here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to lay this guy on both the batting and the back. If you're using a backing that has a pattern on, make sure that the pattern is showing on the outside. So it's the right side is out, same like the right side is out here. And I'm gonna just leave just like an inch or so around all the sides like this. And the fabric should kind of stick to the batting a little bit. It's kind of like Velcro a little bit. It'll want to stay. Flatten it out a little bit. All right, that's good enough, I think. So I'm just going to cut it with my scissors. We're just going to cut around the edge here. Give it about an inch. I'm cutting through both the batting and the backing fabric. We're working with a small piece, so we don't have to leave as much edge as we would for a full quilt. This is just in case things shift a little bit when we're quilting. This is probably more than I need as well, but right now it's my first time doing it, so better safe than sorry. So all right, I'll have a little bit of scrap later to use for my back sashing that I'll need when I sew these together, but I only have those 2 fat quarters left, so it looks like I can only get one of these out of a fat quarter, so I really can only make 2 more blocks right now. I'm gonna have to call home and see if Mom can bring some more of this yellow, this kind of buttery yellow fabric when I see her next. All right, so I got my pins here. These are those quilting pins, basically for quilt basting. They're like safety pins, normal safety pins, but they have a bend in the middle. I think they're called bent safety pins, actually, just, you know, very logical name. And it's for quilting, so you can, ooh, sometimes they are not good. I should toss that one. If they don't go into the fabric right away, sometimes the tip of the pin, the point isn't very sharp. You should just toss those. All right, so I'm going through all the layers of fabric and then coming back up, and that bend helps me come up easier. And we just want to hold all of these layers together. So I'm just kind of spreading things out from the middle. And some people use glue basting for this. Oh, curved safety pins. There you go, Lauren. Curved safety pins. Not bent safety pins. Ooh, a little tough going through still. But yeah, so this just holds, this bastes our fabric together. So that just means, basting just means temporarily holding together. So these pins are gonna temporarily hold together our backing fabric, our batting, and our front fabric. And I might actually, since it is really small, I might not actually need all these pins. I think I might just keep the ends, the sides pinned, pin the edges here, and then take that middle one out maybe. And frankly, you know what? With the size of this, I might not even need to have any pins at all. I think it's just kind of being held pretty well by the batting is kind of holding things together. But to be safe, I think, you know, I suppose the best practice is to make sure that these are basted together. Oh, thank you, Donna. You're not sure where the back sashing goes. Don't worry about it, Gretchen. The back sashing will come when we put a finished four patch like this next to another finished four patch. So the back sashing is gonna come, we're gonna cut, when we're done quilting, we're gonna cut this edge off so it's the flush to our four patch here. And then the back batting will, or the back sashing will come when we connect this piece to a whole nother four patch. It's gonna be right here, holding it together. So we don't need it yet. We don't need a back sashing, and the back sashing is actually going to be a different size too. So don't cut all the back sashing yet. Maybe I can kind of show the idea here before we get going. But let's get this guy finished pinned first. The back sashing, I think we're going to actually make, we're going to cut, oh gosh, this is another really poor one. It's time to go through all the, whenever I come upon a pin from now on, or anything else that is just not quite right, I'm going to get rid of it. It's time to get rid of these things that just aren't sharp enough or don't do the job correctly. Why have them around? So those two pins are going in the trash. I don't want to force it through the fabric and make a big hole or anything. Okay. Oh man, yeah, all these just need to be refreshed a little bit, I think. Okay, let's close this up. We are done prepping this guy for quilting. So the front is attached to the batting and attached to the back. So here is what our back's gonna look like. Ooh, this is gonna bunch up a little. I should maybe, well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with quilting. We're gonna quilt this patch. I'm not gonna do it now. We're gonna sew 4 more of these together tonight. So I'll have 2 of these ultimately ready to free motion quilt, and we'll start that next week. On Monday, I think, we'll start free motion quilting this one and a second one. So what we're ultimately gonna do is, once this is all quilted and we trim this off, so this will be flush to the edge, right? We're going to put our second block right up next to it. And then we're going to sew sashing to the front. So we'll make a long piece of sashing like what we did here, a long piece of sashing, and we'll sew it to the front. But we will also sew something that is like a binding. So, I mean, all these aren't right, but a binding. So the binding will be 1.5 inches. So that's a little bit wider than what we did this. This was 1 inch. We're gonna do 1.5 inches for the back. So that's about, you know, like this. Or let's call this 1.5. All right, so we're gonna have a cut like that. We're gonna kind of fold it in half like it's a binding. Then we'll sew all of those 3 pieces to one side. Then we'll flip them and leave the binding, and we'll sew this piece to another piece. I know this probably doesn't make much sense at all, but it will once we have the pieces together. Then ultimately, we will have this piece, this binding piece on the back. This raw edge will be sewn in, and then we can flip this edge over, and then we will hand stitch it to the other backing of this. So that's how the back sashing works. It's a little bit different. It's almost like a binding. Lost that little piece. So if that did not make sense, it will when we are that far in the process. But if you're curious, that's how the back is going to work. So the back piece, the back sashing piece, is going to be 1.5 inches wide, I believe. And it'll appear to be 1/2 inch like this once we're done, but we start out with a little bit bigger piece than what we're doing for the front here. So don't pre-cut all the backs. Oh, you think the back sash and binding should match the backing? Oh yeah, so that's I'm doing mine to match. You don't need to. It'll make like a little grid if you don't match it, but I am gonna match it to the back. the color. I'm gonna match to the color of the backing here. Yeah, and it'll be kind of like a binding. You'll hand sew that on. You can machine stitch it on. It will leave a little stitch line on the front, but if you get it right in a seam, then, you know, who cares? So I might try some where I hand stitch and some where I machine stitch. We'll just see kind of how it goes. But before we can do any of that, we need 2 finished pieces to put together. So this will be the first. Next up, let's look through our book again. Let's make another one of these. So we're just going to set this to the side, and we will make a whole nother one here. So here are my unfinished blocks again. Let's page past those. All right, let's start grabbing these finished ones out of here. So I need 4 more. I think I have 6 total done right now, so we should be able to get 4. I can't make 3 though, because I need 2 more finished. So let's just grab whatever is in here. I'm trying not to be too picky with how these are put together. So let's just take them in order right now. As I finish them is how they're gonna be in this quilt. So, all right, here's this pretty flower. Let's grab this guy. All right, so I'm deciding these 4 are next in line. All right, so let's arrange these guys. Ooh, I kind of like these together. It doesn't really matter all that much. I don't know, maybe I'm being picky or weird. It doesn't matter. Why am I still doing this? Okay. I'm gonna stop. It does not matter. I mean, you can get really, really picky, but you know, late at night, like now, sometimes I get way more picky. Perfectionism kicks in, and then I want to putz around a little bit more. At least with this one, you won't have to do 2 3-inch binder full blocks at the end. Exactly, Lauren. With this, I won't. We'll just have these little pieces to do as we go, and we won't have to do this in a huge fashion when we're done. All right, before I get too far here, I think I should get my machine out again, and then I can lay these out on the machine. So let's keep that order. Get the machine back here. Get my adjustable sewing table back on here. And I was like throwing this guy on here too. Okay. Here are the 4 in the order. Okay, they need sashing. So we're basically making a 9 patch here. But the 9 patch, all the pieces are just a different size. So 3 items across and 3 over. Sashing, sashing, sashing. So my sashing is they're 1-inch pieces by 6.5-inch pieces. And that way, once it's all sewn together, they'll end up being a 1/2 inch wide, which is small, which is super small, but it's going to match. It's going to match the sashing for the quilt as you go. So for the quilt as you go, just because our seam allowances are a 1/4 inch, we're kind of covering up those 2 seam allowances. So our sashing for quilt as you go is going to end up being a half inch. So I thought for the sashing in the middle, I would just mimic that so it feels the same. All right, we got to pick one of those little guys. I think maybe we have this little dark fabric in here. That'd be kind of cute. How about that one? Or we could do this bright one. I need to cut some more colors. I only cut from three of my bright fabrics. We'll do more later. That's awfully cute too. Let's keep this one a little bit blue. Let's keep this bluer. I'm gonna go with that one. Okay, So here's our 9 patch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to sew in columns. So I will sew these 2 together, then I'll sew these 2 together, and then these 2. So I can keep sewing on the machine without taking things off. And then I will sew this guy to this grouping, this guy to this grouping, and then this guy to this grouping. And then we'll press everything, and then we'll sew this whole row to this row, and then to this row, and then press it all again. And then we'll have another finished block of these 4 guys together, which is awesome. Then we'll have 2 things to quilt. And once we have those 2 things quilted, I'll show you guys the quilt as you go process. I have never done it before. I have seen it done. I've studied it a little bit, and my mom is doing it as well. So I think I've seen, she's explained it to me as well. So I think we'll figure it out here. The quilt as you go binding process, and I'm pretty freaking stoked about it because we're sewing things together already. We're sewing blocks together. I'm gonna start from the bottom. You know, so that means once we finish all our blocks later, we'll already be done. Everyone else is gonna be laying out their blocks and figuring it out and getting batting fabric and a big piece of batting, and we will be done. We will have all those pieces together already, and we'll have them quilted already. It will just be done. We'll have to sew the smaller pieces together to make the bigger one, but we can do that as we go too. So after it taking forever for me to finish the last Splendid Sampler, the first Splendid Sampler, I'm pretty dang excited about this quilt as you go process. Especially for a quilt. I mean, it doesn't work for every quilt, but this quilt, we end up with the same size blocks all over our quilts, and I just want to put little itty bitty borders in between them, and I don't want to do anything else fancy, so quilt as you go is going to work out just right. I mean, if you have different size blocks, it might be more difficult. Or if you want to do a really specific quilting design that's all throughout the piece, where you really need to focus on it all throughout, then, you know, maybe quilt as you go isn't right either. But for this particular quilt, it's going to be great. You know what? I forgot to measure these again to make sure that they were 6.5 inches, but I'm going to assume that I'm cutting them to 6.5 inches before calling them finished, so we're gonna just assume, we're gonna trust the process that I did it already. If you're using a white background for your blocks, do you think a red sashing would look okay? I think it would look striking. If you want, you can just cut out one piece of sashing and lay it next to your block and just see how you like it. I think it'll be very bold, like the contrast between the two, and I think that would look just super duper pretty. So it's kind of what you're wanting to go for. I'm going for like super subtle. My white sashing is gonna blend into the background of my white background blocks. But a frame, like a beautiful red frame around it, I think would be really cool. You're thinking red sashing and blue cornerstones. Oh, because your quilt is patriotic. That sounds fabulous. That sounds like it'll just be super beautiful and just right. I'd say go for it. Yeah, sounds awesome. Especially if you really like that red, it's gonna really frame all the blocks. Oh, and if you have a lot of this red, then totally go for it. All right, I'm going to stitch these 2 guys together now. Starting from the bottom again. Luckily with all of these blocks actually in this foursome, none of them, I don't have to look out for points or corners on any of these blocks. So I'm just sewing it where I have the strip on top. I think that's just a little easier for me to sew. All right, there we go. This guy gets attached to this. It's kind of fun working with this tiny sashing and tiny little square cornerstones. Cornerstone is just the term for these little squares that end up in between the sashing, and they also end up at the corner of each block. Cornerstone is just the Quiltland term for it. So whenever you hear someone say cornerstones, it just means the little squares that are popular in between the sashing pieces. Does the size of the block diagrams always have to be enlarged at 100%? Well, if you want to stick to, if you want them all to come out to 6.5 inches before you sew them into the quilt. So right now all my blocks are 6.5 inches. Once they're in the quilt, they'll be 6 inches because you lose that seam allowance. If you want them all to be the same and them all to be 6.5 inches, then yes, make sure they're at 100%. If you want to make them however you want, then feel free to enlarge them or shrink them. I always thought, at least with the last Splendid Sampler, there were a few blocks that I'm like, wow, this would be beautiful blown up as a whole quilt. So yeah, if you want to enlarge them or shrink them, go for it. But if you do want them to all end up being these 1/2 inch or these 6.5 inch squares, then yeah, be real sure to make sure that your printer is printing the design at 100%. So it should be like actual size or 100%. It should be very clear that you're not enlarging or shrinking it. Okay, so Nolene says make sure you print borderless. Yeah, each printer is different. It's whatever setting makes it not shrink or enlarge. So fit to page is wrong. You don't want it to fit to page. You know, shrink to page, you don't want that. You want it to stay actual size. So like physically, yep, okay, Gretchen, mine says actual size as well. That's what I do. I just click actual size and then it shouldn't enlarge or shrink it. It will err on the side of cutting off printing that doesn't fit in your page, which is what you want. You want it to print actual size. And if you don't have actual size, you know, have it set to 100%. That should do it. Same thing when you're making copies. Sometimes it doesn't, they don't have it in these patterns. In this book it doesn't look like, but sometimes a pattern will have a little line or a square that says this is a 1 inch. And if you print it out and you measure that, and if it matches the 1 inch, then you've double checked it. You've made sure that it is actual size. So that's good. These don't have that, but sometimes there's a little bit in it, you know, like this is halfway. And so if it's 6.5 inches, then you know that this is, this should measure, well, in the block that's 6 inches, these should both measure 3 inches. So sometimes you can kind of guess a little bit, but definitely 100% actual size. However, you can get it to just be as is, not shrinking. Okay, we got our pieces sewn together. I'm going to do that the nesting of the seams. And nesting seams together, what that means is you press the seams one way, and then the next row down you press the opposite way, and then the next row again you press the opposite way of that. So it's the direction you press the seams, and if you put oppositely pressed seams together, they will kind of nest together, they will hook together. And if you can feel and pin that physical, you can feel them kind of bump, the seams bump against each other. If you can sew the seams like that, then you should end up with perfect points, like where they meet. So this seam will line up perfectly with this seam and won't be shifted off a little bit. Mine shifted a little bit in the last bit, but you know, this seam right here is a good example. This got perfectly nested. whereas this kind of slid a little bit. That's not exact. None of these other ones are exact, but I do have one really good corner in this one. Luckily, you know, it's these little squares. I don't think you're going to notice much. So, all right, I'm going to press the top and bottom rows towards the inside. And then this middle row, I'm going to press towards the outside like that. And then we should have our nested seams ready to go. Okay, so Noeline says for hers, she has to make sure that the border setting is set to borderless. So that's kind of like, that's almost like fit to page almost. It'll shrink it so it's not printing right to the edge sort of thing. So by printing borderless, it's like telling the printer, hey, don't shrink this, just print to the edge. I suppose that's kind of, they get tricky, I don't know. But yeah, you want it to be exactly printed so it's, so they all end up being at 6.5 inches. All right, here's our first. I think this was like this, yeah. Man, this is where you gotta take a photo so you remember what direction some of these go in. Oh, this is our first block right here. Look at all the fun seams on the back of that one. Oop. Ooh, this one's stretchy. There's a lot of bias seams. Okay. I think we got that. I always like to hit it from the front again. I really love this block. Oh, yeah, I'm not always accurate, Christine. I have to force myself to be okay with it sometimes, especially late at night. Like right now, I feel like my perfection buzzers kind of go a little bit off. And I want things to be super perfect, but I don't know. I always try and make things, just think about things as being 80% good. Because if something only has to be 80% good, then it's way easier to start a project because you're like, yeah, it only has to be 80% good. I can do this. And you can get it finished too because it doesn't have to be perfect. You can be like, yeah, I can just keep going. It doesn't have to be perfect. It only has to be 80% good. So that's what I have to say to myself to get through some of those things. I mean, you can, I could have unpicked that and really put the seams together a little bit better, but I know in overall the scheme of things, it's not gonna matter. So that 80% thing is that reminder that lets me be okay with it not being perfect, because it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing this to learn. I'm doing this to try a new technique, this quilt as you go technique, and you know, play around with new colors that I'm not used to using. So, all right. I'm going to flip this over, right sides together, and this is where those seams, I want to nest those seams. So you can see one of these seams is pointed to the left. These ones are pointed to the inside. These are to the inside. These ones are to the outside. So let's match the edges and those seams. You can see that they, at that fold, they butt up to each other from doing the seam opposite directions. And that butting up is what is going to make those seams match, hopefully. So I'm gonna just put a wonder clip there. You know what, I think I'm gonna do 2 wonder clips tonight, because last night I only did the one and I was always off a little bit. It's kind of weird with the wonder clips so close because this is such a tiny deal here. But I'm doing it anyway. Your actual size is also off. Oh man, you have to save the block to your desktop. Oh, that's a good point, Jenna. I actually do that too. So I never print from the browser, from the web browser. I always download it first and then open it up in like whatever it opens in, like a PDF viewer. it will, I open it outside of the website. So yeah, I do that too. I save the block to my desktop and then open it up from the desktop and then print it. You're absolutely right. That's a good point. It makes me too nervous printing directly from the web because I feel like I can't trust that. So yeah, I download it first and then open it off site, basically, off of the web. All right, let's start sewing this guy. I think now that you said that, I think I'm remembering trying to print once from the web and at actual size and it not being quite right either. All right, so we are approaching these little bits that I've nested the seams. So I'm gonna take the first one off. Let's get that one going. Take this next one off. Maybe we did a little bit better this time than last time. Oh yeah, it's so fun, all the different blocks. I mean, it's definitely a learning challenge for sure. Like the Splendid Sampler quilt, so this is just the second one, but with the first one and this one so far, they have definitely been quilts to try new things and to test new things and to try and improve on things. Like for example, we've had a lot of circles so far in this quilt. Just looking for my ender here. A lot of circles. So we've had the opportunity to try all sorts of different ways to make our circles. And that's been really neat because you can see kind of what you lean to the most. I really liked that tinfoil way that we did it the last time we did circles. I was not sure I was going to like that as much as I did, but I think I might do that more often. I mean, I wouldn't have known that if we hadn't tried all different ways to do these circles. But look at this, guys! They are perfect! Okay, that's a good seam. This is from nesting those seams together, but this seam goes right into this seam. We have a perfect matching point here, and same here. And ooh, we even have a bonus of this diagonal meeting right up in there too. So that's a bonus seam right there. So all right, so it did do better from me pinning both edges down. So I think we'll do that again. Oh, your crochet break really inspired you last week. Oh, but they're hard because you're left-handed. Oh man, I would love to address that some way. Like I would love to try some left-handed, doing some things left-handed or some specific crochet and embroidery left-handed videos just to try and give that a go. But thanks for reminding me of that again. Yeah, it's tough learning a new craft like crochet or embroidery when everything's flipped. All right, I'm nesting those seams together again. Just kind of feeling for them to bump together, and I'm just pinning them. So if this works, I'm gonna just pin both of them every single time from here on out. Thought I could do it without, but it worked pretty dang well. Okay. Let's just trying to match the seam here. Maybe I should go on the back here. So on the sashing side, that might be a little bit easier. Yeah, that's gonna be easier. All right, let's do it. I don't think there was anything I really had to match up on the front. Oh, you know, I was gonna clean the machine and everything. I forgot about that again. I'll have to, this weekend, I'll have to maybe try and clean my machine up. All right, my wonder clips are upside down now, but I think we'll manage. You've learned so much about circles too. Yeah, it's been fun to just try new things, and that we'll try things with, you know, things other than circles too. We just happen to have a ton of circles on this quilt so far. But yeah, we're doing different types of applique, and it's just a good opportunity because you're not committed to do, you know, 100 blocks with the same style applique. Like, you know, we're not needle turning 100 blocks. You're not making a commitment like that. We're just doing like one block, you know? And then you can be like, yeah, I like it or I don't like it, and take it or leave it after that one block. So you're only committing to, you know, 6.5 inches worth of stuff. Oh, the pick thing. So this is my stiletto. It is literally just a turkey lacer. It's a turkey lacer with some beads on. I do like this flat bead. I think the flat bead helps to hold it. And then it's just the tip is glued down. So you can totally make your own. It is a turkey lacer, like from the grocery store. And, you know, Thanksgiving is coming up, so I'm sure these turkey lacers will be popping into stores in theory soon. But yeah, and then I think it's just, you know, go to Joann's or wherever, get some beads. I love it. It acts as, it's like a third hand, I feel like. It's like a finger that I can get right in here, and it has that sharp point, like a pin, so I can really hold things down. I am totally in love with it. Okay. Let's check this out. Oh, Lauren, you checked to see if you could flip the videos, and there's no good way to do it without downloading the videos. I'm going to look into that. That's something I'd like to help out with a little bit. Oh man, I was a little off on this bottom one though. Check that out. Which, you know, I flipped it upside down and things might have shifted and all that, so I did not do as well that time. But hey, the top ones are pretty dang good. Oh, your grocery guy said they'll definitely have them at turkey time. That's good. Ooh, look how little that is though. I love it. All right, let's press this. And then we have this block done, and I think we can, let's go ahead and sandwich it into our little mini quilt right away. Then on Monday, we can just start quilting. Yay! We'll start free motion quilting these 2 squares. This one and the one that we did at the beginning, that we sandwiched at the beginning of this video. Why am I not going this way? There we go. And then on Monday, we can start free motion quilting these little mini 4 bits together. Okay, let's flip this around. Aw, I like him. I'm pretty off on that one, but again, who's gonna look at one tiny little square, 1/2 inch square, when there's so much more to look at in this whole quilt? So I'm not worried about a little bit being off. Okay, I just want to make sure these are all pressed. This guy has a lot of seam allowances. I just want to make sure they're flat when I sandwich it. Okay, we're looking okay. All right, here we go. Oh, you taught a friend to crochet left-handed 53 years ago. Oh, she sat across from you. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I have a little idea on how I can do that, but yeah, I gotta get making videos again here. All right, here is our piece. Let's, I can get a little bit higher so you guys can see. Let's go ahead and sandwich this right away. So you know what? I think I'm gonna get rid of my sewing machine and this table again, just so I have my workspace. So let's shimmy all this out of the way again. It's nice having this table that I can just move relatively easily. It's got a little handle on there. Flapping it on the ground. Let's get my batting. Scissors. Okay, so we need another of these fat quarters, and you know what? Let's press that fat quarter like we did the first one, so it's ready to go as well. Then I only have one more fat quarter, so I do need to acquire more fabric. I'll like I said, I'll have to put a call out to my mom, so hopefully she can bring some so I can borrow. Oh, Craftsy has a class for left-handed knitting. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I might be able to do some of the stuff like embroidery. I'm thinking I can probably do that left-handed. I don't know if I can crochet left-handed. That would maybe take some practice, but otherwise, like some sort of video flip, I think that's a good idea. I could probably do that. Nope, not an expert on crochet, but enough that I think I can practice some of the little things. All right, here is this. I mean, you know, it's not perfectly pressed, but it's gonna be perfectly fine for what we need it for. Okay, get this guy out of the way. All right, laying this flat on the table. Next, I'm gonna line up the batting piece. Oh, that's interesting. If I film using the front-facing camera, it will show up as mirrored. That is a good point. I like that idea. That makes a lot of sense. All right, I'm trying to... Where's the best place to grab it? Like, these are too small. This corner is too small. I'm using scrap batting, so it's kind of... I'm Frankensteining my piece out of here. Probably not in the most effective way, but that's okay. We'll use it for something else. Okay, that's good enough. That's in the corner. All right, let's lay this down. I think that will do. Let's trim it with my scissors. Here we go. I always get nervous when I cut. Always get a little quieter when I cut. All right, so there's that piece. Oh, totally make one, Christine. If you make one, be sure to share it in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group. I wanna see how it turned out. Ugh. Okay, let's see if we can get any more. If there's any more bad pins in here. Sprinkle some on there. Okay. I'm gonna shimmy you guys a little bit so I can get my hands underneath here. Oh, it's gonna be fun trying to figure out what to quilt in here. That's gonna be a challenge. I haven't, you know, the first time I did free motion quilting really was on the Charming Chevrons quilt that we just finished a little while back, and that was just in little rows. I haven't done like motifs like this. Like, I don't know if I should treat the whole thing as one motif or pretend I'm stitching each one individually, or maybe I can bleed some quilting in from one to the other. Whew, it's gonna be an adventure. I'm gonna have to make decisions. So that's Monday's job, though. I don't have to worry about that till Monday. But I have a water-soluble pen. We could maybe draw out designs, but yeah, we'll probably just start. If I want to get fancy, you know. We have a lot of these that we'll be doing this with. I mean, these are only the first 8 blocks here out of 100. So if we want to experiment with big motifs or rulers or whatever, we can. I'm allowing myself to just have everyone look different. You know, if I want to focus on this guy for this block, and then another 4-patch to do like a big flower across the whole thing, I'm allowing myself that. I'm not gonna worry that one thing's different than the other. So we'll try it in a few different ways. about trying things, this Splendid Sampler quilt, so that's what we're gonna do. Try big motifs, little motifs, all over pattern, you know, let's try it all. See what we like best. This is kind of, you know, this one's not working well either. Sometimes people say make little practice quilts, kind of like this, to practice your different quilting designs and your quilting motifs. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're just going to end up sewing it all together in a quilt when we're done. It's not going to, you know, these practice pieces aren't practice pieces. They're going to be something when we're done. And I don't know, I like that a lot better than having a lot of little practice snippets around. I like having a finished thing, so we get kind of both worlds this way. Okay, so there's our front and our back. And here, let me twist that together. All right, so these two, we will free motion quilt. I mean, we won't obviously get that done on Monday, but we will get started free motion quilting these. And then we will trim them so that the batting and the backing match the front. So they'll be tucked away like this. And then we will be putting them together and doing our magic quilt as you go process. So, but first we got to get them quilted. So that is the next plan. We're all set to do that then too. Ah, it's gonna look so cute. Oh, I'm gonna put one little cornerstone right here. Let's just picture what it'll look like. It'll be so cute. All these little cornerstones everywhere, itty bitty ones. I'm pretty dang excited about this. So yeah, we are set for Monday. We are set for free motion quilting. So, all right guys, I'm going to flip you around and I'll show you these and we will call it an evening here. Okay, can you quilt on top of the applique ones? I think so. You can quilt wherever you want. So sometimes I know people like quilting on the outside of applique because then it kind of makes the applique poof up a little bit because you're pressing down through quilting all the areas around it, so it can raise, you know, kind of the applique part. So that's an option, but you can just quilt right on it too. This one that we did kind of do some quilting on it, I probably won't quilt over that. This I probably will do some sort of circle around, or, you know, we could just mirror the whole thing, but we could stitch in like little petals. I don't know, there's so many things we could do. So that's what we're gonna have to figure out next. So on Monday, we will kind of analyze, we'll just pick one of these to work on and we'll kind of analyze some ideas, what we could do and what we could think about, and then just start. I just kind of want to start. We could get all picky and really plan it out big time, and we could put like some clear acetate down and practice drawing different things on it. And maybe we will do that, practice different motifs, but we'll just throw out a plan and give it a go. We're just gonna give it a try. So that we'll do on Monday. Tomorrow is New Block Thursday, so we will get a new Splendid Sampler block tomorrow. It will be released on thesplendidsampler.com, so tomorrow you can just go to that website or go there now and sign up for their newsletter, and they will mail you the new block. Or they'll mail you a link to get to the new block. So that's thesplendidsampler.com. And then Friday is Finish It Friday. So I will be clearing all this away and we'll be pulling out a project that has been sitting around forever, an unfinished project. And I encourage you to grab an unfinished project, like in the depths of your project bin, and pull that out and resurrect it for an evening. So 1 hour a month we work on an unfinished project, and that is the first Friday of the month. So on this Friday, first Friday of October, we'll work on a project. I think it's gonna be my jean quilt that I've had around forever. I'm quilting it, but I'm quilting it by tying little wool yarn knots on it. So hand-tied quilt. So I think that will be it. Oh, it is Leslie. I'm on 8:30 p.m. Central Time every night. So every night I'm here, 8:30 p.m. Central. So if that helps you out a little bit. So, okay, so I will get this up on YouTube, you guys, at Penguin and Fish Movies. That's where all the replays live. And I will see you tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Central. So have a great night, and I'll see you then. Good night.